Are you supposed to feel good after a loss? It's been so bad this year. Like, that's the thing. I'm very conflicted today. And if you don't have a conflict, you don't have a story. And oh, what a story the Denver Broncos are in the 2022 season. It's Orange and Blue today. It's 3:30 p.m. Mountain Time, Monday through Friday, right here on all of our fan social networking channels. It's Cecil Lammey, soon to be joined by Andrew Mason. Mace is waiting, as we often do. Don't want to get in trouble for saying Nathaniel Hackett's late to his press conferences, but he's late to his press conferences, so whatever. Important business. Important business against the Chiefs. And the thing is, it's been so bad this year. Like, the reason I'm conflicted is because you never want to say a loss is a win or whatever, or like a moral victory, right? That's the conversation going around Broncos country today. Moral victory. Do you believe in moral victories? I personally don't. Steven's like, moral victory Monday. Exactly. I don't believe in moral victories, but I just know this season sucks. So the fact that they were able to put up a fight against the Chiefs, I was like, okay, it's not a moral victory, but they did something I don't think many of us expected that they even could do. I know I was just saying before the game, and certainly on with No Sean Moreno on our fan football pregame show, I was just like, just don't get embarrassed. Please, please, for the love of God, don't get embarrassed. And they didn't. Now, they did initially, down 27-0 or whatever the number was. But like, you look at it with the way they were able to come back, the way that the defense never gave up, the play of Josie Jewell, the play of Pat Surtain making a phenomenal interception there to get his hands underneath the rock. I thought that was fantastic for the Broncos. But as Jose says, no moral victories in the NFL. Exactly. It's no moral victories, but and that's where I'm conflicted. Like, okay, yeah, they still lost. They now have 10 losses on the season. Nathaniel Hackett is still the head coach, and we're waiting on him in his late press conference that I don't want to get in trouble saying it, which is ridiculous that Broncos PR would, scold people if they say, hey, Nathaniel Hackett's late to every press conference. Like, whatever. Nathaniel Hackett isn't a hill you should be dying on if you're Broncos PR. Just be like, yeah, we know, the dude kind of sucks, whatever. Like, maybe not say that, but he does suck. He sucked the last yesterday. I don't know. Again, it's conflicting because you see the positives, the Josie Jewell, the Pat Surtain, as I mentioned, Jerry Jeudy, haven't got to that. The heart and the fight of Russell Wilson, Brett Rippon coming in and throwing a touchdown to Jeudy as well to get him that hat trick. But like, that's where the emotions come into play because you're like, well, what do I think about yesterday? I think it sucks that they lost again. I think it's better that they showed some fight. But then here's where I come down on it. And Colorado Dan says this. And I got in trouble one time on a live read because I kept saying Coloradoan. And like, we've got feverish emails at the station because they're like, tell Cecil he's a dumbass. And it's Coloradan. So Colorado Dan says no moral victory, but it was exciting to see glimpses of what we expected going into this season. And that's exactly my point. Because I go, okay, no moral victories. They weren't embarrassed. They showed these flashes. They showed a ton of heart, a ton of fight. I love the players. I can't stand the coaching staff. Butch Barry's awful offensive line coach. There's no doubt. Like, what a mistake. Who would even thought? Like, hey, Mike Munchak, what? Hall of Fame guy? Nah, don't need him. We got a full staff of people that don't know how to do anything, including Butch Barry. Butch Barry is an awful, not just bad, awful offensive line coach. And there'll probably be more coming out like once he's fired and once this whole thing breaks. Like, there's a bunch of Game of Thrones stuff that I'm not at liberty to say. But yeah, you guys are going to hear a bunch of stuff and just know that we knew it. And there's some stuff that we can't say, but like Butch Barry's awful. I've heard bad things about Ty Wheatley, who, I don't mind as a hire. I was like, okay. But there's been some stuff in the running back room that has been interesting to say the least. We know Hackett sucks. Clint Kubiak, some better calls, but still not the consistency that you need from a play caller. Seemed to identify better and certainly the right play call on the Marlon Mack touchdown, the big touchdown. I was just watching Dave Logan's replay of that the Broncos tweeted out as I was waiting for Nathaniel Hackett. So like, yeah, okay, there's some things here. Hackett still sucks. Okay. Like this should not save his job. This should not give you any pause. This should not be like anything that's like, well, maybe, because I already saw it. And Silent One says, I can't believe Broncos country today. This is unrecognizable for us who have been fans longer than 7 years. This loss is unacceptable. 14 in a row. Thank you, Silent One. Because, and this is where like a Mike Purcell, I always said this about Philip Lindsay, right? Philip Lindsay was from Broncos country. He understands Broncos country. He is Broncos country. These new guys and these players that come in, and God bless them, you know, they're not from Denver or from Colorado. Went to Colorado, like they're not that. So they don't know. But Silent One is exactly correct. And this is what makes me even further pissed off because I'm like, this isn't acceptable. This is not Broncos country to sit here and stare at Nathaniel Hackett. And I've already seen it on Twitter because I saw it last night. Well, maybe Hackett should get another year and you can't blow him out after 1 year. You should have already fired Hackett. No question. Full stop. Full stop. If you are someone like Silent One and you've been a fan longer than when Peyton Manning got here, and I know Manning brought in a lot of fans that were Manning fans and maybe they became Broncos fans. There's that one major Broncos fan that I'm not at liberty to say, but maybe I should one day, just like the guy who likes the Broncos because of their colors. Like, it's such a absolute joke. Why do you love the Broncos? I really like orange. Okay, nice. But like, if you've been a fan since the 80s, since John Elway said no to the Colts and was traded to the Denver Broncos, if you've been a fan when Brian Greasy was out there trying to do his thing, you know, falling downstairs or whatever, which isn't the official story. I think we all know what the story is today. If you were a fan, Jake Plummer was doing his thing, like, you know, this is not acceptable. Mike Shanahan went from a lifetime contract from his best friend, Pat Bowlen. He went from, you have a lifetime contract, to fired. Some would say because of Joe Ellis. It's probably quite a bit of truth to that. Some would say, you know, whatever. It's the GM, Shanny GM got Shanny, the coach, fired. Okay, that's accurate as well. The Joe Ellis thing mixes in as well. But at the end of the day, what were those Shanahan teams, like 8-8? You know, and that wasn't good enough. They have 10 losses this year. They suck. Okay, Hackett sucks. Yesterday was a glimpse. It was bright, but this is where the conflict comes in because I'm so pissed off that like that was there the whole year. You play like that against all the other teams. And I know it's Kansas City and you get up for Kansas City and this is your Super Bowl and all these sorts of things. I get all that. And I get all the excuse. Oh, there have been injuries. They got a practice squad offensive line. Yeah. Yeah. Look at what the Bengals have gone through with their offensive line, or the Dolphins are going through with their offensive line. Like, look at all these other teams that are winning and playing winning football and aren't relying on the excuses of, well, we're really injured. What are you going to do? We're banged up. Maybe you don't have Club Med for a training camp. That goes back to Nathaniel Hackett sucking. Okay? So this is where I get pissed off because the talent is there. The players are there. Don't give me the damn injuries. Every team goes through injuries. Every team. It's 100% injury rate in this league. Have the Broncos have more than others? Yes. Do they need to re-examine their training regimen and all these sorts of things? Yes. Do they need to do training camp and actually play football in training camp? Yes. All these things are true. But damn it, at the end of the day, I knew that these guys were good. That's why I said 12 wins. And that's where I get ticked off. And it's not about me or my awful prediction. 12 wins? More like 12 losses. If you're lucky, it will just be 12 losses. You're looking at a 5-12 season for Nathaniel Hackett. And there are some people out there saying, maybe Hackett should get another year. Brr, 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 brr. I am an NPC. Like, what? Think for yourself. I know there's a death to critical thinking in this world, unfortunately. There is a push for anti-intellectualism in all facets of life. And if I'm not just talking about sports, then you know what the hell I'm talking about. Because it's polluted everything. Don't think, just listen to what they tell you. Don't think, just listen to the Broncos Twitter that says Nathaniel Hackett had a good day today. No, he didn't. They lost and they suck and he sucks. All right. And I hate being that vicious because it's not personal. But damn it, it is kind of personal because this guy is insulting all of you. All of you. I don't care if you agree with me. I don't care if you're like, right on, Cecil. I don't care if you're in the chat room being like, Cecil, you don't know your head from your ass. I don't care where you are on the spectrum of Broncos country. This is not acceptable, and Nathaniel Hackett is insulting you, the fans. He's insulting you with his guidance, garbage guidance of this team. He's insulting the fan base. He's insulting, sullied. His beautiful visage was sullied. Like, no, the beautiful visage of this Broncos team, that logo, that helmet, what this team means, what Mr. Bolin made it mean to you, to all of us who've been around since the Elway days and the Plummer days, the Greasy days, everything. If you watch Sean Moore and Tommy Maddox go rotate series, you're a Broncos fan. If you watch my man Leonard Russell literally plod his way to 900 yards in 1994 in the 75th anniversary of the NFL. Beautiful jerseys. Mwah. By the way, Terrell Davis wasn't in the league then. I always get pissed off when I see the fake jersey of Terrell Davis from the 75th anniversary because it's like he was at Georgia then. He didn't get into the league till 95. That was 1994. I remember. Member berries? And that's what the hell Broncos country has turned into is member berries. Member Peyton Manning? Member Super Bowl 50? Like, that's all we have is the memories of the past. So don't ever think that this is acceptable. We know it's not acceptable. And that's where the conflict comes in because it is so exciting to see these players perform. These players can perform. I wish they would have been performing sooner. We wouldn't be in this situation. Andrew Mason joins me now. Mace, I was just yelling, so I'm glad you're here because now I need to drink some water and I need to stop yelling, but I am conflicted. I'm like your tripod, right? I'm like, I'm up, I'm down, I'm up, I'm down. And that's where the conflict comes in because it's like
a little windy out here.
It is a little gusty in the Mile High City, but like, dude, it was so good. But they still didn't win, and I personally don't believe in moral victory. So let's have you take over. Give me your opinion on yesterday's game, dude, because it was so many good things, so many things that we can take away from that contest. And then it's like, oh, and they still didn't win.
All right. This is like the Broncos thing.
Right, exactly. Like, put your hand over. Wait.
Yeah, can't get it all together, right? Oh my goodness.
Right.
So we may have to try something different here.
Okay, that's fine. I can keep yelling. I can do this. Fix your camera, Mace, and then I will bring you back in. Once you have that thing fixed, give me that thumbs up. But like, and that's the thing. And it needs to be better than this. I believe it will be better than this, and it doesn't need to be better with Hackett. Okay? That doesn't need to be with Hackett. And Jeremy says, love your passion, Cease. Thank you, Jeremy. I appreciate that. I'm sorry for yelling. I'm sorry for being asinine or whatever some people would say. I just like, I like the truth. You know what I mean? And Nate says, F the spin doctors. Like, yeah, that's why you listen to the fan. And listen, for the people that say we're so negative on the fan, and there's that one guy on Twitter last week, Mace, that was like, you guys are negative. I'm like, what? Huh? Let's just be honest. And that was a good game yesterday. It didn't lead to a win, but it was a good game, Mason. I believe in these players, man. They've got some good players, and we saw some of those good players show up yesterday. We
did. And look, I mean, there is no such thing as a moral victory. If there is, and sometimes it's what you're clinging to. Yeah, they did a lot of things right on Sunday. In fact, it was an interesting vibe in the locker room late Sunday afternoon because I've seen that locker room be absolutely devastated after losses. Saw it after the Colts game, the Chargers game, the Titans game, those three in particular. It was a funereal atmosphere in the locker room after those games. Yesterday, it was very kind of matter of fact. It wasn't celebratory, but it wasn't downcast. And I think part of it is this. Those guys knew they did a lot of things right, that they had their best punch. They did some good things. Nathaniel Hackett, I asked him specifically about what changed for the offense, why it was different. He talked about going up tempo when they were down 27-0 toward the end of the first half. And I'm thinking, okay, fine. Next week they should go up tempo a lot more often. Whether it's Russell Wilson or Brett Rippon, I don't care. Both quarterbacks should be able to handle that. They know the offense. But I think yesterday they did get Mahomes a little bit. Mm-hmm. Patrick Mahomes was the difference in that game. Patrick Mahomes makes two ungodly plays. One on the little, kind of the hook shot pass to Jerick McKinnon for a touchdown. And then in the third quarter where he's running around scrambling, finds a receiver in the back of the end zone for what proved to be the game-deciding touchdown in the end. And sometimes you just got to tip your cap. I mean, that's not something you really want to do, but it's hard to acknowledge that the other team did something well. But the other team, in this case, Patrick Mahomes, even with the 3 picks, showed why he was the best player on the field. He was the difference in the game, pure and simple. Broncos did a lot of things right and lost, and that happens to a lot of teams that go up against a Patrick Mahomes-led club. That's the way it is.
Yeah, and lots of comments about believing in the players. Dude, the heart, the fire, the intensity. Like, I got a ton of questions about the coaching staff. But man alive, these players and Russell Wilson, and we knew it was there. So many misconceptions were beaten down yesterday about Jerry Jeudy, about Russell Wilson, even about Josey Jewell. Hell, how many times have I said it? Josey Jewell can't cover. Proved me wrong. 2 picks yesterday. Nice plays from Josey Jewell.
Well, part of it is you're not asking him to stay step for step. You're asking him to handle his spot in the zone. And that's what he did, to diagnose the intent of the quarterback and react to it. That's what he was doing well. No one's asking him to go man for man against a tight end or a receiver, particularly not in this scheme. You're asked to execute your role and to have a read on where the quarterback is going, and he seemed to have that. That's exactly what Josey Jewell can do. That's the kind of pass defense that he can play. You saw some good things from the edge rushers. I thought Jonathan Cooper, he was hurt at one point, came back in and thought he had an outstanding day out there. Thought Damari Mathis was terrific. I mean, as I tweeted yesterday, I think you found your CB2. It's going to be really interesting next year with Ronald Darby, because while you always want to be deep at cornerback, and maybe you could have some kind of restructure similar to what you did with Graham Glasgow this past year. They might say, let's save $11 million here and move on from Ronald Darby. And Damari Mathis is a reason why you could do that. I would argue for a restructure to keep Darby around. And then you're feeling pretty good 1-4 at cornerback because you got K'Wan Williams for another year. But, you've got some good things going on here. And Jerry Jeudy, the maligned Jerry Jeudy, if you look at the last 4 full games that he's played start to finish, so obviously we're not counting the one playing out against the Titans game, the dude would be on a 100 catch pace over a 17-game schedule. I mean, he's 100 catches, 1,200 yards over 17 games. That's what it prorates out to. I mean, he is quite productive right now. He's doing a good job. He appears to have good timing with Russell Wilson. The question I have, Cecil,
yes,
and you mentioned Russell Wilson scrambling, and it is this: clearly, things work better when Russ has that tool in his drawer and he's willing to use it. He had his first 50-yard rushing game in his last 28 starts. In the previous 28 starts before that, he had 6 50-yard games. That shows you kind of how running has generally evolved out of his game to some degree. That being said, while you look at that and say, hey, the scramble drills, it works. It works for him. It works for this offense. It works to keep the opposing defense off balance. Do you think he's going to be as willing to do that going forward because of what the result of that last scramble was, which is being in the concussion protocol? That's a huge question, I think, because if Russ isn't moving around, if there isn't the threat of the scramble, then the Broncos will never get anything close to what the Seahawks got out of Russell Wilson.
Right, right. And if Russ wants fourth coming soon, you're gonna have to be vintage Russ. But
Yeah.
we saw that heart. We saw how much it means to him, dude. And that's where, like, when the Russell Wilson bashing was at its peak, and I was getting pissed off because I'm like, stop it, everybody. The dude cares, and we clearly saw that yesterday, putting his body on the line.
No doubt. And, sliding wasn't an option there, but he went full tilt into traffic, knew he was going to get crushed probably on some immediate subconscious level, and went out there, got those extra yards. It was 3rd and 11. He got 14 yards. There are a lot of quibbles that are justifiable to have with Russell Wilson and this season. Effort, willingness to sacrifice his body, toughness. These aren't questions that any Broncos fan should have. They should have had him before because he's taken a pounding this year behind this duct tape and baling wire offensive line. But if you had any questions that were lingering somehow after all that, they should have gone away after that scramble yesterday and what he sacrificed. Because, look, I mean, looking at the welt on his forehead, the hit that he took, the way his eyes kind of rolled back, I mean, you were thinking kind of something really awful for
Watch
that.
his arm, too, when he went down, it went limp. So it just kind of like moved around, and it's always the ground. Like, I understand helmet to helmet and all that, man, player safety, but it's always that damn ground. The ground always gets guys because, like, they'll get hit and they're fine, and then they'll bounce their head off the ground. And man, what a hit! What a play!
Yeah, because the head bounced off the ground. The head's got gravity working, working with it too. It's a combination of gravity and it's a combination of hitting it at a very high rate of speed. I don't want to presume what's going on in the concussion protocol this week. Nathaniel Hackett said that Russell Wilson looked great today. Well, I mean, that doesn't necessarily mean anything. If it's Dr. Mason here, Dr. Mason would be very cautious and would probably not play Russell Wilson next week.
Yeah.
Because I'm thinking about the long term as well. How can a bad season get worse? A bad season can get worse if he goes out there and has a second concussion in a very short amount of time. Because then you're talking about something really frightening on a human level for Russell Wilson.
Yep. And ask Orlando Franklin about the concussion he suffered in December. I think it was with the Chargers. He had effects until August.
Right.
What if he shreds his knee? Now it's 12 months. He won't be ready till next December. So how do you make a bad season worse? Get Russell Wilson hurt worse. And concussions compound on each other. The next one's worse than the one before.
Right. And it's one of the reasons why they have the concussion protocol. But one thing you and I know, Cecil, is that these guys know how to beat the concussion protocol, to try to hustle their way back out there. They know the tricks sometimes to go through. I beg and plead with Russell Wilson, don't do that. Let this thing heal. And I beg and plead with the Broncos to not force him out there before he's ready.
Yeah.
On again, forget about football. This is about Russell Wilson, the human being.
Yeah, this is about Russ and the long-term health of himself and, of course, the long-term health of the Broncos franchise. But, questions in the chat room like, this team has talent? Yeah. Yeah, they do. And we saw some of those talented players come through. It's the thing that's always frustrated to me. It's like, it's not that this roster's full of slappies. Not everybody's healthy, whatever, but I'm not going to use that as an excuse. They have talented players.
Yeah, they have talented players. I just sometimes wish they would put them in better situations. I mean, can we agree that Luke Wattenberg's first start should not have come at guard against Chris Jones?
Right. Poor kid.
That did that young man an incredible disservice. You had somebody in Netani Muti on your practice squad who had 4 career starts. He should have gotten the call in that situation. And you know what? For all the Broncos did in increasing the tempo there at the end of the first half, perhaps the biggest thing was getting Luke Wattenberg, who was out of his depth and shouldn't have been out there to begin with, getting him out and getting Quinn Bailey and Netani Muti, 2 guys who have some practical experience out there in. That was transformative for the amount of time that Russell Wilson had. He was still under duress, but at least he had a fighting chance that he just really didn't have with Luke Wattenberg out there, by the way, at a position that really isn't his natural position because he's a center.
Yeah.
And you're asking him to play guard.
And Alberto didn't play after we thought he might be their secret weapon.
2 snaps he got, Cecil. 2 snaps.
Yay.
What are we doing here? I mean, look, this is nothing against Eric Salbert, but you see Eric Salbert lining up wide, okay, on some snaps. That screams Alberto, right? If you want the best matchup, that screams putting a player in a position where he can succeed. And it's things like that, forcing Luke Wattenberg out there when you have Netani Muti on the practice squad, stuff like that these are the things that frustrate me a little bit, honestly, Cecil.
Yeah, and Moody'd be a lot harder to push around. And Wattenberg's good. He needs time.
He can be good, and this doesn't mean he's not somebody who isn't going to factor in for you long term. He may well do that. But I believe in giving somebody a fair chance and a fair fight. Asking him to make his first career start at left guard with Chris Jones staring across the line of scrimmage from him, that's not fair to anybody. It was disastrous. That is being kind.
Yeah, you and I were on with D on Friday, so I don't want to take Wes's word, although I'll take your word, Wes. But if D-Mac is still saying Wilson's trash, stop. Everybody stop. Russell Wilson is not trash. And I would tell D, just like I'm telling you, and you'll tell D later because you're probably on the drive. But, come on. It's not that he's trash. It's that you have to figure out what ways work best for him.
Well, and the other thing also is the universe where you tear down and start over again and tank for Caleb Williams, that is not a universe in which the Broncos are going to live. Okay? So... And he and I talk about this. I mean, I get what he's saying, but it's not a realistic option. I'm focused on realistic options. Realistic option number one is trying to maximize what Russell Wilson is. And if that means he only gets to being QB 12 or QB 13 or 14, you know what? Then that's okay. That's okay. That's fine. That's getting something out of it. And if you can keep the defense at something close to its current level, I know it had a bad game on Sunday, but it did have three takeaways. It's not about yards necessarily. Broncos have done well at giving up yards. Yesterday they didn't, but they got 3 takeaways. That can be a success equation too. And going forward, hopefully they can mix some of that. Mix limiting the yards in a lot of games with being able to make those transformative takeaways. Because you know what? All this started with Josie Jewell's pick. That's how it began. That was the spark that lit the fuse.
Yep. And that's why I called him MVP of that game. Zargo Dan, super quick, Mace, because we could definitely chop this one up, and we will all week. But Doc Mace, Hackett doesn't have long-term to think. And then Lawrence says Hackett will play Wilson for selfish reasons. These are logical lines of thinking. Mm-hmm. This is where if I'm George Payton, I come in and say, he's not playing, dude. He's not playing.
And the other thing is also this. There are a lot of faults of Nathaniel Hackett as a head coach, but one that is not a fault is looking out for the safety of his players. Frankly, the Broncos have erred on the side of caution with these guys. And I could never believe that Nathaniel Hackett would force Russell Wilson out if there was a risk of something serious long term. That doesn't jive with the Hackett that I know and I see out there working and that I've learned about over the last several months.
And of course, everyone loves Brock Purdy. Skylar Thompson was the 7th rounder. You wanted a 7th round quarterback. It was Skylar Thompson, both at the Shrine game last year.
Any quarterback can have one good game. Okay.
Oh yeah. Trevor Siemian had one good game.
It's what happens when the film accumulates and teams can adjust. And how's the quarterback adapt to that? The Bucs didn't have regular season film except for part of one game on Brock Purdy. Let's see what happens when that film accumulates for foes going forward. And the other thing is also, with all respect to Brock Purdy, that's a triumph of Kyle Shanahan.
Yes, who is always covered up for his quarterback because he had to work with Jimmy Garoppolo. Jimmy Garoppolo's not that good. Mm-hmm. Trust me, anyone on that staff will tell you that. But I sound like the two Bobs, Mace, because I want to see 4 games of Brock Purdy, and then we'll see what he looks like.
Yeah.
Get film on him, and then they'll figure him out.
Trevor Simeon's third start, he was AFC Offensive Player of the Week, you know.
Mm-hmm. Yep. That was the Giants game, right? Stink was like, pay him.
No, Bengals game. That was in
Bengals
16.
game.
It was in 17 when the Broncos started 2-0, and he had that dazzling game against Dallas at home in week 2 after beating the Chargers in week 1. That was when people were saying, pay him. And then a week later, you go to Buffalo. He's trying to throw the ball away, and he can't get enough on the ball to throw it out of bounds, and Buffalo picks it off.
Oh, man.
I remember seeing that throw. I'm like, what in the world?
And people wanted to pay that man. Well, whatever. It's fine.
It's nothing personal, T Sizzle. Or was it on his PFR page, T Money Sizzle? That's where they listed his nickname.
Yeah.
Nothing personal, T Money Sizzle. Just he was he's a career backup. That's okay. You can do very well as a career backup. He's doing very well in Chicago behind Justin Fields. That's perfectly fine.
You're like Money Mace. Like, what's your other nickname other than Mace, right? Because people call me Diesel or Big Max or whatever, but like you have to have like an alternate nickname to Mace, right?
No
Money
one's come up
Mace
with that.
in your face. No?
No. I mean, we'll see. One will come organically at some point, I'm sure, but it hasn't happened.
Yeah, don't self-gloss.
With Mace, it's just so natural, right? Just kind of, it's so easy, and so you just default to that.
I always wondered what Mace the Rapper wanted to be when he grew up, because he always sounded like a child.
Yeah.
But and then he became a preacher. So
how about that?
Yeah, had a falling out with P. Diddy, Puff Daddy, Diddy, Puffy, whatever.
Yeah.
So hip hop, Broncos talk, Office Space. We're on the whole gamut, baby. We'll do it all here at Orange and Blue today.
We'll do it again tomorrow. My hand's getting a little cold.
All right, he's Andrew Mason, Inspector Mace, as glossed by Nate.
Oh.
He's Andrew Mason. I am Cecil Lammey. Thanks, everyone. Be safe, be kind. Know that you are appreciated. Stay tuned and stay frosty.